You're probably thinking, my boyfriend said this was a superhero movie, but that guy in the red suit just turned that other guy into a fucking kebab. Well, I may be super, but I'm no hero. And yeah, technically this is a murder, but some of the best love stories start with a murder. And that's exactly what this is. Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond. And to tell it right, I gotta take you back long before Lou squeezed his ass into red spandex.
Get ready to thrive loud with Lou Diamond.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, connecting you to the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. I'm your host, Lou Diamond, and today on Thrive Loud, we have a man that discovered his dream and purpose to serve others in the marketplace through his public speaking, coaching, and writing. He has worked with hundreds of clients, suppliers, and organizations across the country as a top sales producer, earning regional and national awards. His purpose is to serve others with a desire to stand alongside them in their victories, losses, struggles, and triumphs, actually. He is the founder and owner of Care to Succeed from South Carolina, somewhere in the woods out there. I'm not exactly sure where, but he's ready to go. Thrive Loud listeners, Duren. Evans, how are you today?
Lou, I'm doing great, man. Thank you so much.
So I found this really interesting because the joys of being a podcaster enable you to recognize that every now and then the first run of the production might not run as smoothly as we'd like to. So
No worries.
Evans and I are back again, and what we wanted to do to get our Thrive Loud listeners rocking and rolling is hear a little of your journey. I think it's a good one. I love people that came from traditional sales and then kind of moved and found their passion. So if you could share that story with the listeners, and I'll jump in accordingly. Sound like a plan?
Yeah, sounds great, man. And I appreciate you having me back on here, Lou, today to talk with you a little bit. It's a little bit of my background. So went to school here in upstate South Carolina at Presbyterian College and jumped into Fortune 15 America right after that, and worked as a sales rep in East Tennessee. And got moved here to South Carolina at one point too. But like you said earlier, Fortune 15 rep was a heck of an education for a young guy coming right out of school. Didn't know a thing about the medical industry and got thrown into it pretty quickly. So loved it. Spent a lot of time there, and then got a phone call from a guy one day and actually went into an IT tech startup space just over 8 years ago. 8 years this month, actually. And been doing that ever since, man. And I absolutely love it. So it's an interesting change going from a very large corporate entity to a little bit more of a smaller organization 8 years ago, where it kind of moves and shifts a little bit quicker, but still tons and tons of products and solutions, working with clients, finding parallels between the two industries, and really enjoyed it. Absolutely love it.
Evans, I want to ask this question a little differently than I usually do. And I want you to look inward here. What makes you such a great salesperson?
So I think it's always hard to talk about yourself, Lou, but thank you. I think the reason I've been able to be successful from a sales perspective, when I came out of school and I jumped in, I was a kid who grew up. We weren't poor, but we didn't have excess, right? It wasn't like extra. And worked from a young age and really understood what it meant to work hard and do things. And when I first got into sales, it was all about let's go make a living, make a lot of money. I don't want to be poor and broke and all this stuff. But really, everything kind of switched and turned probably around year 2 in my career. It went from all about the dollars and quotas and performance and standing on stage. And those things are great. There's nothing wrong with those things inherently. But I found out that using sales as a platform to also be a human being and walk alongside people in their day-to-day life beyond a transaction, man, truly powerful. And that's where I really found kind of my ability shined, was when I really started to focus on the client first and the business second, if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. And it's understanding who that individual is and what they're about, and connecting with them to try to figure out, I guess, how you can best help them. Right. I used to love saying it's not about selling to someone, it's helping someone buy and partnering with them.
Yeah. Well, Lou, tell me if you agree with this. We're all selling, in essence, roughly the same thing today, right? I mean, there's very few products and solutions where it's like, this is the only thing in the world that does what it does. Customers and consumers have different buying behaviors, and the challenges on a macro level are very much the same, but on a micro level, it's unique. But the reality is, when it's all said and done, there's more options than ever before. So going in and just selling around a solution or a product for the benefit of selling that product, it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, it's a great point. I think I've worked with a lot of large software organizations, and if you're so knee deep embedded into technology, you can kind of recognize that it's a challenge to unweave yourself in there. But in today's environment, the ability to turn things on and off pretty quickly, adapt to many different solutions that are cost effective, the ones that understand your business, the ones that want to partner with you and are on your team are the ones you want to work with. And getting large organizations to make that shift and getting more, mid-sized, smaller organizations to recognize that that's actually their strength is the win.
Yeah. And I like the word partner that you use, going from being another vendor or another company just representing a product to how we truly partner up with the organization.
Let's talk about that, by the way, for a sec, because I used to joke about this. The most annoying thing that I ever had to deal with as at any level of an organization, whether it's as a consultant today, when I helped companies with software solutions, even working with them in financial services on Wall Street, they used to, when you started to align yourself with a larger organization, the document that they used that you needed to get yourself put on board was called like a vendor agreement. Mm-hmm. It used to make me nauseous because the word vendor means I am here just to sell you something. Now, I recognize that handing a partnership agreement over might be a little bit incorrect. It's not like we're trying to take an equity stake. However, that is what we're doing with their business, right? We're trying to show that this client is really part of our services, our business. It's one team. I just always hated that language, though, the vendor agreement.
I'm right there with you. 100%.
So I want to talk about the care to succeed. By the way, anyone that throws a number in the middle of a word expression, I'm a big fan of, since I do that often. How can you help organizations better care so that they can succeed?
Yeah, no, great question. And it's funny, you asked earlier about how I've kind of become successful on the sales side. And this is a theme that I've recognized over 13 years, is when you genuinely care about people and outside of the transaction, right? So that's kind of how the name started. And it stands for this. It stands for care. Is it commit, appreciate, reciprocate, and equip? The number 2, because you don't do it alone, this idea of redefining success. Where are you committing your time? How are you committing your resources? Are you appreciating the opportunities in front of you? Are you reciprocating those back to the client, to the other people in your communities? Are you equipping yourself, your team, and your client at the end of the day? Because odds are, if you're working with someone and you're selling products and solutions, they also have other end users too, right? So how are we continuing to equip one another? And this idea too, I've seen a lot of reps in multiple industries go it alone and try to be the Superman. And you know what? It falls flat after a while. They may be real strong for a bit, but there's burnout, there's exhaustion, and there's missed opportunities, quite frankly. Yeah. Level of service goes down. So the idea of partnering up and working with other people. And then again, this idea of redefining success. When I look at organizations, a lot of folks I talk with, they say, Evans, we're marching this number and this and that. And again, I'm not against quotas. I think that's great. Quotas and benchmarks and revenues. And I understand that you have to make profits to run a business. All good things. But what are we doing to make sure that our success is more than just the numbers? How are we truly impacting and enhancing the life of the end user at the end of the day? Yeah, what am I doing as an individual, a team, and an organization to come alongside them and not just sell to them like you talked about earlier, like a vendor?
Evans, have you seen one problem of late that is more prevalent than others in helping organizations better connect with their clients and with their customers at the roles that you've been applying? Yeah.
I think it's still that age old kind of, we get, especially on the sales side, right? We get told, here's the product, here's the solutions, this is what it does. Here's how you go in and uncover opportunities. Here's how you box out your competition, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? And reps are taught to sell their solutions. What's funny is organizations, they do the same thing, right? So I think continuing to see your client through their eyes and not just your own, whether you're a rep or you're an organization that's being sold to and you're a consumer, right, that's reselling again, I think that's a challenge that I still see a good bit. Really understanding from the eyes of the client or the end user what those drivers, needs, challenges are, and what they really truly want for desired outcome.
So now I'm going to ask a question that was asked to me recently by a leader of a sales organization. He had said there was a huge challenge that he was facing. Here he is explaining all the ways to better connect with your clients, your customers, your targets to his sales organization. And yet he's fully aware that those better connections in establishing, making it not just about the sale, but building that relationship will in turn grow the revenue, the sales, the business, the relationship will grow because of it. Yet the challenge he faces is that he's constantly having to monitor what the sales are each and every day, and remind people of it. What's a good way or a delicate way to balance this challenge? The challenge of knowing it's not about the end number that is important with the relationship, but yet the numbers become the focus of the organization because that's the measuring stick we need. How can we deal with this little problem that's going on here amongst the sales leaders of organizations?
That's a great question. So when I look at this, right, this comes back down to responsibility too. And we have to recognize that. So if you're a producer, let's just make up a scenario here. Let's say you work for a company and there's 50 employees and there's 15 sales reps per se, right? So you get 15 folks that are out there working sales, all that. But then there's a lot of support staff and folks behind the scenes. Maybe there's engineers doing delivery or whatever it may be, product specialists. But these 15 are the ones trying to drive the revenues. There's a responsibility that I think we overlook sometimes, that for every single dollar I bring in as a producer in my company, a portion of that goes to make sure that we keep everybody staffed, that we're able to bring on new resources, we're able to do different innovation things in the back end with our technologies in-house. We're able to do more for our clients, right? So there's this responsibility of, I am a producer, this is my role in the company. I need to make sure that I'm doing everything I can to help there. But it also means there's other people in the organization that are reliant upon me doing my job. So there's a real sense of responsibility and honesty I think we have to approach that says, look, we want to build relationships. We want to be with people. We want to make sure we're doing the right things. But there's value of time and there's value of service. So I think there's a matchup there that says, okay, if I'm working with a client and I want to be helpful and I want to develop this relationship, that time and that relationship is valuable. And what's that dollars associated with that helps make sure that all the resources on the back end continue to bring the best product, solution, and services to that client. So I think it's a little bit of it's an interesting spot to be in, right? But for those guys who have to look at the numbers every single day, again, I'm a big proponent of honest conversations, responsibility, and some trust between sales leaders and those out in the trenches.
Yeah. I had, interestingly, a similar conversation with an individual who works in professional sports, believe it or not. And they were talking about how obviously every sport, from horse racing to baseball to football, there's more and more analysis about the numbers, the stats, the information. And, if you, specifically baseball used to be a little bit of that, well, do we really just need to look at the numbers, or can we look at that unwritten rule, or those, immeasurable intangibles that people would look at? And what he had said, which was a great thing, some of the guys who had the greatest numbers and the greatest production actually didn't think about the production at the time of doing their job. And it was that ability to divide church and state, for lack of a better word, that enabled them to focus on what they had. And when the more they focused, the better results in the numbers were. And I guess that's the only comparison I can make, bringing it over to the sales world, is knowing that if you do that job about connecting, you will grow.
Well, if you mind if I share a quick story right here, Lou, about that specific.
Absolutely. You are the guest on the show. Over some of the microphone.
Oh, man. No, that's great. No, so there was a situation I had years and years ago. I guess it was probably 7 years ago. And I hit this spell where we were doing really well, right? And I was new in the IT side of the house, and I just kind of hit my stride. And we were doing some very large projects, and we had brought on some very large clients. They had some pretty big exposure, if you will. And I remember going through a situation, and I called another rep on the team who was a counterpart of mine, but also, the guy that I was striving to be more and more like day in, day out. And I'll never forget calling him. And I was asking for a piece of advice at about 10 o'clock one night because he was the only other person who had done a project of that magnitude in the company. And he said, Evans, don't forget to care about your customer more than your wallet and just watch what happens.
Great
and
quote.
Yeah, and it was funny because people say, well, what's your quote? And I look at them like, I think it's this, and I know what it is, of course, but it's not something we dwell on, right? And I think the folks that excel in sales, they're less worried about the quote, and it's hey, we're going to get there because this is what we do, and we do it well. We're not worried about the number. We're worried about making sure that we're taking care of the client and we're exceeding your expectations, because my expectations for me will always be higher than you as a sales manager.
That's a great quote. You may end up making the quote board with that one on there.
Awesome. That sounds good.
Hey there! If you're enjoying how Lou is connecting with this guest in this interview, then just imagine how impactful he can be in person. As an international speaker and consultant, Lou Diamond is all about getting organizations to thrive through the power of connecting. To learn more about how you can hire Lou to speak at your company, your conference, or your next event, head on over to loudiamond.net and click the Book Lou button to learn more. He'll truly get everyone to thrive loud. All right, let's get back to the show.
So Evans, let's ask this question about you personally. Obviously the roles that you have, I'm going to ask one quick one. You highlight three things that you do: the coaching, the writing, and the speaking. Pen to paper, gun to your head, whatever example you want to do, you get to do one of them. Which one do you pick?
Speaking, hands down.
Share why.
There's something to me that's very special. I've always wanted to speak in front of groups. And when I was 18, 19 years old, I started reading John Maxwell. And this concept in my head of standing in front of people speaking was like, oh, that'd be amazing, right? But it was way more naive and immature at that time in my life because I hadn't lived through a lot of these things. And it was more about wanting to be, on the stage talking to folks. And over the course of my career, it's now going, wait a minute, there's so many things that I've been through and watched other people around me go through. I want to stand in front of folks on a platform where I get to speak with them, not to them, and share that experience and hopefully impact their lives, even if it's just a small piece, man. There's something special standing in front of someone, having a conversation, whether it's 3 people or 1,000 people, and just seeing a couple folks get just a little change of body language, or just you see them light up a little bit, you see that crack of a smile, and you know that something you said will be going home with them when they leave. And a lot of times you don't know what happens next. You don't get to see the end result, but you're absolutely giving something from your life and imparting it to someone else. And you hope you see that ripple effect in their life somewhere. That to me is the all-time high that I love that part of those 3 things. My favorite piece.
Evans, I'm just kind of laughing because 2 weeks prior to the airing of your episode, John C. Maxwell actually comes on Thrive Loud. And so at the time that we're recording this, you haven't heard his episode yet, but it will come afterwards. And,
yeah, did he ask about me? I mean, I'm just wondering, did he ask me about me?
For the listeners, first of all, Thrive Loud listeners, go back and listen to the episode with John C. Maxwell, who is probably the guru as it relates to leadership authors out there. And his most recent book, Leader Shift, we actually timed the launch of his episode to come out on the date of the launch of the new book. And awesome. It was a great conversation, but that what you had mentioned too, which I think, because he's actually from just outside the Atlanta area down in Georgia. Mm-hmm. You're not too far from him. No. He happens to have a really good grasp of what leaders have to do today. And I've always said this, salespeople, leaders, speakers, thought leaders, all the same rules apply. All the connecting rules, as I like to say, apply. That the master connectors are great leaders, great marketers, great salespeople. And these are people who have to get a voice out. So it's just funny that you obviously mentioned John.
Yeah.
But that was a great point. And now I'll shift this to one of our standard Thrive Loud questions because I'm curious. Look, you've been doing this entrepreneurial road for a certain amount of time, obviously getting to speak more and connect more with your audience. On off days, so to speak, not off days like I'm sitting back and kicking my feet up, but off days like you're not 100% on your game and you're not truly doing the best that you can. What practice do you seek or whom do you seek out to get yourself back on the thriving track?
Man, well, first off, I'm glad you're addressing this because a lot of people want to say, "Oh, you got to be on 100% of the time." They don't want to talk about those days where you kind of get kicked in the gut, right? But we all have those days. It's impossible to go through and act like you don't get those moments. So one, I think it's great you asked that. But as far as what do I do, for me, I've got about 3 people that I'm extremely close to that are kind of the inner circle of people that I look to in those moments. Where it's really easy for me to pick up the phone, and it's Tim, it's Joe, and it's Chris, and it's one of those 3 guys I'm calling, and I'm saying, "Hey man, it's 11:30 at night. I got this on my mind. I need you to get up and talk to me for a minute." Or maybe it's early in the morning. "Hey man, I'm stuck in this thing. I'm trying to work through it in my head. I think I'm overthinking it. Help me shed some of this." Right. So for me, I'm a person who needs to talk it out typically, and walk through things. And that tends to work the best. Sometimes I like to sit down and read, whether it's grabbing my Bible or a book from Maxwell or somebody else. But more oftentimes than not, I'm reaching out to some close confidants and saying, "Hey, you got 10 minutes to work with me."
I'm just laughing because you said grab the book from Maxwell. John Maxwell, I don't know how many books he has, but it's insane. Yeah, I mean, just out of curiosity, which was one of his that resonated the most with you?
So I've got the one, everyone communicates, few connect.
Yep.
I think that was important. What a true statement, right? If you think back to it, I said it earlier, right? We're all selling roughly the same thing at the end of the day. And the consumerization of technology and everything else, the ability to make decisions and have so much power before I walk in the door, even talk with you about a product solution, more than ever before. And who doesn't have an Amazon account where they can go point and click and get things the next day, right? Yeah. So really learning how to understand people and talk with people, not to them or at them, to go deeper, right? Because at the end of the day, we're all trying to feed our families and do the things that excite us, and promote businesses and help one another. So that one for me always is stuck. Everyone communicates, few connect.
Great stuff. Do me a favor, Evans. Let's do all the admin stuff here. Share with all the listeners all the places where people can find you, websites, social media, etc. Sure. We'll have it in the show notes, but it always comes better when they hear it from you.
Yeah, no. So I'm on LinkedIn quite a bit. I love making videos and putting them up there, and it's everything from videos about redefining success to other things that I run across. Maybe it's a story of the day or a story from my past. I share up there 2 to 3 times a week. Instagram is just Evans Duren. And then my website is evansduren.com. It's EVANSDUREN.com. Those are the 3 best places to find me.
Awesome stuff. 2 more questions before we wrap it up here, Evans.
Yeah.
Okay. So you live in South Carolina, and I guess this is, you got nothing to do. You get a day off to go hang out and go have fun. Not what indoor, but what outdoor activity do you love doing most in your neck of the woods?
Oh man, so there's 2 things, right? So when it's warm and the spring rolls around, my in-laws have a little pond and we go fish for bass and catfish and brim. I've got 2 boys that are 10 and 7. My wife and I have been married 13 years, and her parents have been there since I met her. So that's a little spot we like to go hang out and just kind of shut everything down, get in the mud and the water and let the kids run free and try to catch some fish. But here of late too, it's a little bit colder, so the fish aren't biting. We've actually been doing a lot of Mentos and Coke bottle rockets. I gotta tell you, man, it's been a lot of fun. My kids are all about some science all of a sudden. So we get to make a mess and have a good time. But something outside with those 2 little guys is really what we try to do more of.
Oh, that's pretty fun. I'm just laughing because I don't know if it was my wife or my sister. I can't remember. Someone sent us an image, and it was a cardboard colored cut up, just like you would see of a science fair. But what it themed was, it was why parents hate the science fair. And it has all this data analysis by the parents. And the best is there's a chart in there that shows the amount of crying and screaming increases with the amount of time the science project takes. And it's just a fun thing, like as a parent dealing with science. But that's great with the bottle rockets. I like that.
Yeah. Well, and I've got one. I mean, he wants to build battle bots and like all types of contraptions. And I'm like, man, I don't even know how to connect with you on this stuff. And the 7-year-old, he's like, Dad, we're going to blow up some Coke rockets. And I'm like, yeah, I can get on with that. The other stuff I'm kind of learning as we go. So the science piece, I'm like, you got to talk to your mom, buddy. She's way smarter.
I like how Evans, by the way, as someone who's all about bringing people together, is really into the blowing up thing more than putting the thing together. That's what I just learned from that.
Sometimes you need it, man. Sometimes you need it.
Evans, Duren, this has been great. I want to wrap this up here. Your all-time favorite movie?
Last of the Mohicans.
Okay, now why specifically?
So that movie, I remember watching that as a kid, and there was something pretty amazing. I mean, when you're a kid, it's like all the wartime, a long time ago in America, and there was something cool about that, and the Indians, and, civilization, colonies and whatnot. But at the same time, looking at it going, you got a love story in there, you got honor, you got family, and you got these guys fighting for what's right. It's a little bit of everything, and there's obviously that famous scene with the guy cutting out his heart, and I'll never forget that as a 12-year-old kid going, wow, can't believe Mom and Dad let me watch this, and I don't think they knew it was coming. So, but yeah, absolutely one of my all-time favorite movies.
That guy got stereotyped into I think he did that movie, and then he did like what's it called? Dancing with Wolves. I think he was in that movie as well. He was
Geronimo and a few other ones.
Yeah, he was totally every Native American movie.
He's forever the bad guy, cutting his hearts out.
Yeah, those poor guys are always the bad guy. He's probably like the nicest man on the planet, and here he is ripping hearts out of old white men. Anyway.
Absolutely.
Evans, Duren, totally fun having you on. Great talking.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
Connecting, and it was great to have you on the show.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much, Lou.
You got it. And to all our Thrive Loud listeners out there, thank you for joining us. Until next time, keep thriving onward and upward. And remember, be brief, be bright, be gone.
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with your host, Lou Diamond. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. And follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Thrive Loud. Or find us on the web at thriveloud.com.